Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Stream Scene. Episode 20, by the way. 20 episodes of Stream Scene.
Nice.
Thus far. We've got another convention-related episode, but something different because E3 is arguably a lot different and very much changing from other conventions. So, I'm joined by my co-host, the Hunter Wild. How's it going, Hunter?
Kitty.
and Kat, Hunter and Kat.
Our two co-hosts, Hunter and Kat. I am doing quite well today. I'm really excited about today's show. Neither Loco nor I have been to E3, but our illustrious, wonderful, magnificent, and magnanimous guest today has been twice.
Yeah!
This will be her third convention, her third E3.
Yeah.
Now, that guest herself is obviously right here. Kintinue, tell us about yourself.
Hi, my name is Kintinue. I'm a full-time variety broadcaster on Twitch. And in the last 3 years, I've done a lot of conventions. Yeah. Awesome. I don't know. Do you
Everything ranging from like TwitchCon to PAX to E3. Any others?
TwitchCon, PAX, E3, XPO, MomoCon.
Like a pretty big list then.
Oh gosh. Yeah, quite a few. I'm conventioned out.
Yeah. And you're going again this year, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
And that's does that include the conferences ahead of time, or is that just floor time?
I'm doing the Bethesda conference ahead of time, and that's the only one I think that I'm scheduled for as of right now. Because those are much more difficult to get into, but they're also usually before the show floor opens.
Right.
So a lot of times, like the first year I went, I didn't know, and we scheduled for the day that the show floor opened. So I missed all of like day zero. I missed all of the conferences. So then last year I went early and got to do Bethesda, and I hung out around the Ubisoft one. I didn't go in. I don't remember why, but I didn't go in. So yeah.
So E3 has changed so much in the past couple years. I mean, it used to be very media exclusive, and then as streaming grew, more content creators started going, and starting last year, it's now open to the public. So, while getting a media badge may be difficult for smaller creators, you can still, get a public access badge and attend.
Mm-hmm.
So what was that like last year, being open to the public?
So the first year, I'm going to backtrack a little bit. The first year was really interesting because it was my first gaming con other than MomoCon. It was the first time I was getting to meet content creators from the platform, and I had just gotten partnered. So it was a really cool kind of experience. It was super open. There was lots of room to walk around. We had a detailed itinerary. Meg, Kaylee, and I had it's so hard to get used to it.
I know.
Previously known as Simply Red Lane, and I had a detailed itinerary to the minute for every day where we would go and meet with developers, see private showings of the games, check out like what was upcoming in the near future, stuff like that. I mean, like down to our lunches were scheduled. We had it very, very tightly done. We had help from Twitch staff for that. Then last year, since we had previously done it, we made our own, and we set it up with the idea that it was still going to be really open and flowy and lots of space and room. It's not. It's very, very crowded. It went from being like a very loose and busy, but not like terribly overwhelming convention to being basically the same level of PAX. So it was very crowded. We had not allotted enough time. E3 is across 2 different show floors. So you have like 2 different sections of the convention center, and there's 2 different halls, I guess is what it is. So running back and forth for our appointments was very stressful. So, I mean, it's nice though now because I feel good about letting people know, like, hey, one of the things you do need to do at E3 is make appointments. But one of the things you also need to do for E3, especially now that there's public access, is spread out your appointments and give yourself ample time to move about.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good to know because
not gonna be an easy flow.
No.
Yeah.
It would definitely wasn't.
Speaking of like appointments, how would someone go about making appointments? Did you just look up the companies going and send out emails? Were you approached?
Or were these existing relationships that are kind of expanding because they're going to be there?
This year it's much more that much this year, because I've gone so many years now, I can be like, hey, are you guys going to E3? Or I have a couple companies that'll reach out and they'll say, hey, we're going to be at E3. We'd love to meet with you and show you X, Y, and Z. But when we first got started, I had a Twitch staff member that helped me do this, but he explained how to do it if you weren't having someone help you, which is essentially you look at the layout of the floor plan, you find the companies you're interested in talking to, and then you start finding email addresses, whether that's going to their websites and doing just a contact us form. Like, hey, are you going to E3? Do you have a PR person? Do you have an influencer relations person? Somebody that I can talk to. I'd love to schedule an appointment. Some companies, they have something on their website that's like, hey, are you going to E3? We'd love to meet with you if you dig around enough. Sometimes I find people on Twitter and I'll say, hey, I know that you represent this company or this brand. I'm going to E3. I know you guys are going to E3. Who do I need to speak to about organizing a meeting? The same way that you would for PAX, but E3, you have to do it much further in advance for the most part.
It's
How much further?
Very, very, very busy.
Yeah. It just depends.
Very businessy too.
Yes. It's much more. Yeah. And you don't have to dress business casual person. Well, you don't have to dress like business, like suit, tie, or anything like that. In fact, like I usually still do jeans and a t-shirt and a hoodie. But I was talking to someone, or I had a friend who's an editor for, I don't remember where she's at now, but we've done panels and things together. And she discussed like, hey, maybe don't wear video game related shirts like of a particular game, because you may be meeting with somebody else who's like, oh, I used to work with that company. And little things like that. They're not huge. They're not necessary, but they're like little tiny things.
It's control it where you can, I guess.
Yeah. Just
because you never know when you're going to be talking with somebody who's got a game in the same genre.
Yeah.
That would effectively be a competitor. And here you are like sporting the competition.
Yeah. I don't think that's like a huge deal, but it was something that was brought up.
They're also probably fans of that game too.
Right. It was something brought up very minuscule. Like I still wear the jeans and t-shirts. I usually wear like something Twitch related just because I'm there. Yeah. I'm going from a Twitch perspective and I have a badge from Twitch. So therefore I'm going to go and represent Twitch.
You're sort of an informal rep. Yeah.
Right. So I'm going to represent my brand, myself, and also the company that I'm going under basically. Which is something really important to keep in mind too. That's a little bit different than PAX is if you get, a media badge through a company, you're representing that company and you never know who's watching. So maintaining that kind of business professional aspect is really, really important.
Is there more? So there's a much greater requirement at E3 to have that kind of business orientation than there is the at least potentially totally casual PAX or TwitchCon approach.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. It seems like that would make a lot of sense.
Yeah. The first year we went, it felt very business. And a lot of times you will run into people who are with very large companies, like very high up in companies that are slinging deals with larger, groups. Like maybe somebody's there presenting a game to Sony or somebody's presenting a game to Microsoft. And you have to be like really aware of where you're at and who you're around and like your behaviors. And like, you don't want to get in anybody's way, but at the same time, you want to be assertive and be like, hi, I would like to see this. Mm-hmm. Let's talk. What can I do for you?
That's where having appointments helps too. So you don't have to like, it can be kind of awkward or can be kind of mistimed to try to like, squeeze your way in like right at the, like right in the moment. But someone asked in chat, like, what is the purpose of appointments? I mean, if with an appointment, you get access, like, you usually get taken to, like, a media room. Mm-hmm. You get one-on-one FaceTime with usually, public relations, influencer relations person, and a dev. So you get, like, FaceTime, and you get that, personal connection with that company. So, like, one of the best ways to network is at conventions in person, being able to actually, like, talk to them and put a face behind your username. So that direct person-to-person experience that you get with appointments and, going up these booths and meeting these people is super important.
Yeah.
At the very least, you start to develop a relationship if you don't already have one with those people. And that can play a big role moving forward. I mean, if we're looking just a few years out, it's really easy to see, but also 10 years out, because these people will stay in the industry, even if they don't stay with that company. And so you end up with a lot of like kind of cross-pollination that way too. So it can be really valuable, I think, to establish those relationships through the appointments, because otherwise you don't really have control over who you're going to talk to and how deep that relationship can be, because it might just be 5 minutes, how that's going to go.
Exactly.
Yeah, especially a lot of these times, like, these people are running around, like, you know, they might grab you if they have a spot and put you at a computer, but they already have appointments. So, like, you might be just put with a dev and, like, you get 5 seconds of FaceTime with the person you actually really want to talk to. So, you know, appointments are important, like, especially at something that's as busy as E3. It seems a little hectic.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun though. It's really neat to, like you said, with long-term relationships and stuff. This year, I had a few different people who had emailed me and they're like, "Hey, we're going to be there, but we're not showcasing anything on a large scale, but we still want to show you this." Or I had somebody at the last minute that was like, "Hey, I have an extra badge. Did you get one? Do you want to come?" Which is really cool. Like, you can develop those relationships, and then over time, you know, they can turn into something else, friendships, whatever. And like you said, too, with people that bounce around a lot, they bounce around a lot in our industry.
Yeah.
So developing those relationships on those kind of one-on-one meetings and spending time not only getting, you know, to see early access of a game, potentially also getting yourself early access to broadcast the game, or say they're looking for streamers or, you know, content creators of some kind to build up an affiliate program or some type of partnership program. You're getting kind of the ground floor level of that, which is really nice. But also, if they decide to leave that company, they'll be like, "That person was really nice. I'd love to work with them again." So, yeah.
So I'm a little curious about, like, the ground floor and, like, you know, the convention floor of E3 and how it compares to PAX. Are the booths, like, is it just the big companies that have the, like, conferences? Are they the ones that are there, or is it, like, indie games as well? And, like, you know, like, is it just what's being showcased exactly, or, like, are there other booths?
No, there are other booths. So anything that's showcased is probably on the show floor somewhere. So last year during Bethesda, they did the announcement for Wolfenstein 2, and they announced The Evil Within 2. So they had stuff in their Bethesda section that was for that, as well as, like, the VR Doom, and I think they had VR Fallout last year. I can't remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, like, all of that stuff that was announced was there. But there's also an indie section that's at E3. There's also booths in, like, almost in, like, the walkways, which sounds kind of weird, but they're not, like, in the walkways. But, like, when you get to the halls, like, outside of the halls, there may be, I remember Abzu had, like, a really nice booth one year. And then the guys who made Payday 2, they had, like, a really nice booth that wasn't in either one of the centers of the halls. It was, like, right outside of the hall. So you'll have stuff that's not just announced during the showcases. You'll have stuff that is maybe you've seen at a PAX, and you'll have stuff that maybe you've never seen before, and stuff that maybe wasn't in a showcase that you can check out.
So what about, like, a Twitch booth? Did they have one last year, and do you know if they're having one this year?
I know that they had one last year, and I know that they're having one this year, which I didn't know that for sure until, like, a couple days ago, and at least I'm going to say 98% sure, just based on some of the conversations that I've had with people, but I don't want to say 100, but I'm pretty sure. So I'd assume so. We're having a Twitch party, so I would assume so.
Really?
Yeah.
That's exciting.
Yeah. They usually do a party, and they usually have a booth. And I'm trying to remember how the booth was last year. I remember how it was the year before, because the year before it was laid out with the circles, the old circle booths that they used to do.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember how they did it last year, to be honest with you.
Did you spend a lot of time there at the Twitch booth?
Not at E3. I spend a lot less time at E3's Twitch booths than I do at PAX. At PAX, I hang out there a lot.
Yeah. I was wondering if it's like Twitch oriented, like relaxation space where people who are affiliated with Twitch in any way, they all come there, and then you have a little bit of a congregation, a little bit of the pollination, or if they actually have some events that are hosted at their booth, like presentation stuff that's streamed, revealing anything themselves or ourselves.
I didn't know if they were going to, and then I saw that DJ had announced on Twitter that he was hosting, and so I saw that they were having the hosting stuff again, which was nice. But, like, if you remember PAX West, not sorry, PAX East and PAX South. At PAX South, there was no booth, there was no Twitch presence at all. At PAX East, there was a booth and there was a very small stage, but there wasn't the overall presence like they normally have.
Yeah.
So I saw that people were kind of talking about that in the chat a little bit. That's why, like, for a hot second, we were all kind of like, is there gonna be a booth? Is there gonna be anything? And it looks like there will be. So
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. It seems like they're trying to hone in on like the coverage of like the conferences and stuff, because I think there's like 4 to 6 different hosts for Twitch.
Yeah.
They're gonna be covering stuff. So it seems like they're going really hard, which is kind of confusing because, like you said, at PAX East they didn't stream anything.
Yeah.
Like, so I mean, I think besides some of the panels. So that is it's a little confusing. Like, I'm not sure, you know, what they're going for. Like,
where the deciding factors
stuff, or do they not? Like, you know, like
where the value is.
Right.
It's like, this is more strictly industry, right? Than the PAX. PAX is a lot of industry stuff, but it also has the heavy social element. Last year being the first time since 2009 that they've opened it up to the public, because it was the very first year was like really massive, but incidentally, because they didn't know what it was going to be like, and then they kind of scaled it down, and they've rescaled it several times. It was open to the public, but then it was like too burdensome, and people were threatening to pull out because they couldn't, you know, the people that they were trying to target to, like industry folk, weren't able to necessarily get a grab on that audience. So they were threatening to pull out. So they rescaled it. Then the booths got, like, the amount that you were having to pay was $4 or $5 million apparently for some space on the floor. So then you had some big industry people who were threatening to pull out. They've rescaled it over and over again. And now it seems like this new, fresh experiment of, like, what happens when we open it back up to the public again, especially with streaming and content creation generally being a larger thing. There are much more people who feel invested in the industry. It's really interesting to see. I can't wait to see how this develops, how it continues to develop, especially with Twitch specifically deciding to maintain its presence there when they're not at some of the other conventions.
Right. And what was really interesting to me too is the first year we went, EA had their own thing. Like, they weren't a part of E3. You had to go through a whole different process. They weren't in the building. They were down like a couple blocks. You had to go like down a couple blocks and down like this other way to get into it. It wasn't attached at all. So like, you had to have a completely separate badge to get into the EA stuff. So, because that was going on. There was a lot of talk of there wasn't enough interest. There weren't enough people coming in. The people that were there, like, I think like you could buy a pass for like $1,000 or something at the time, but you still had to have all these different proofs of, like, this is where I worked in the industry. Yeah. So I understand why they opened it up to the public. I just liked that it was more spread out, and I didn't feel like I was stepping on people.
Yeah.
I mean, that was one of the biggest things I heard from E3 last year. That was so crowded, and like security was super lax as well. Do you know of any changes that they've made to, like, the experience going in?
Yeah, so we were talking a little bit about this morning. There are 3 different levels of badges that you can have for E3. There's a media badge, an exhibitor badge, and then these are all kind of lumped into one section. There's industry, VIP buyer, gamer, and business pass. So what they've done this year is if you don't have an exhibitor or a media badge, you can't bring in a backpack. You can have a bag, but it has certain restrictions on it. I think it's like 12 inches by so many inches by so many inches, but it's smaller and it can't be a backpack. And I think part of that's probably to tighten up on security, but also probably to help with the space issue, because constantly you were bumping into somebody.
Right.
Also,
and a backpack will like double the depth of a person, right? So you're standing sideways in this like walkway, and you're now 2 people wide.
Right.
You got this. That's how we do.
Exactly. Also, they have you have to go through a bag search. Everybody goes through a bag search. And they've changed it to where not only can you not have a backpack, but you can't have oversized bags. If you don't have the correct media badge, you can no longer have large cameras or tripods on the show floor. there's a lot of really, really good information on their website that kind of talks about the changes. They also point out the fact that if you see a streamer, a celebrity, a content creator, a developer, an artist, whatever the case may be, to ask before you take a photo because they could be working. There's a lot of really interesting stuff that they're I think they're going to tighten down on pretty hardcore this year that they didn't last year, which does actually kind of bring up something. If you have appointments and you're making appointments, try not to make them for when the doors open, because the lines, no matter where you go in that building, are crazy, and they don't care if you have appointments. You're not getting in early. So like push those appointments back. No. Wait, let me think. No, there may have been separate lines last year. There may have been. I can't remember. But like, I know that Meg and I had an appointment. We accidentally both years have had appointments when the doors open, and they don't care.
Oh god.
So yeah,
that seems to be as a lot of these are growing. That seems to be a more consistent problem. Like even at TwitchCon for Twitch partners who had panels early, like when within 30 minutes of the doors opening, still weren't able to get in there and start their panel on time.
Right. Yeah.
Then you take that outside of that context in E3.
They weren't letting anyone in.
Yeah.
It was pretty messy last year.
Yeah.
We had a panel at like right when the doors opened, and I had to like beg security to let me go in the side way and like up the back, and he like escorted me the whole way like I was up to something, and I was like, panel, I'm sorry.
You do appear relatively untrustworthy. I'll be honest.
Even with normal colored hair, gosh.
Yeah, I know.
Sorry, I just like bumped everything. But yeah.
That's interesting. So, I guess like, what about the nightlife? Like, how does that compare?
Oh,
to
that's
other
good.
conventions? And how, like, for someone who hasn't been to a convention, maybe it's their first convention. You know, what can they expect?
Is it more open? Is it schmoozier? Is it still carrying on? You know?
It felt kind of similar to me. I mean, there's the Twitch party. There's the same like kind of, you're doing kind of similar things. The first year that I went, it felt like, well, first of all, Meg and I didn't go to a lot of the nighttime stuff because it was my first con. And Meg wasn't 21, and I didn't want to leave her behind.
That's right.
So I did a lot of stuff. Like we stayed together and we just hung out, and it turned out to be really good because then we could go and have dinner with people that we wanted to have dinner with, or companies we wanted to have dinner with, if they invited us or whatever the case was. And then we could just go back and hang out. The last year, we went to a lot of different like parties, but most of them felt kind of similar to the PAX parties you would go to. But they were more businessy in a lot of regards. It was much more, not dressy, I guess, because they're all semi-dressy, but like it felt a little bit more stuffy than like the normal PAX party, for instance.
Do you feel like you're approached more for like business-related connections at these parties? Like
yeah, at the parties themselves.
I mean, like, it felt like, to a point, yes. To another point, though, it felt like we were kind of approaching people as well, doing the same thing we would normally do. Like, just hang out, find some people that were cool to hang out with, and then if somebody happens to be with a company, you could be like, oh, that's really interesting. Like, let's talk about what you do, kind of thing. We had some people approaching, but it was more like PAX, basically.
How does the networking seem to differ there from other conventions? Like, are you much more having to be prepared to bust out your business card at any time? Are you hunting people down, like sort of like what you were saying, finding yourself forcibly more available to having business conversations at any time of the day?
Not really. I mean, I think, okay, so that's probably not a good question for me because I feel a lot more comfortable at these events. So I'm much more like, I treat it very similar. I mean, I treat it as businessy as I do as far as PAX or whatever happens. But I feel like I feel like I'm less joking at these and more. Yeah, I guess so. I don't know. I'm talking in circles because you make me nervous. Yes, sure. Yes. I always have business cards. Always have your business cards. Always have your business cards. I didn't have
Right. It doesn't hurt to have them on you.
Yeah.
Even at the parties too. I feel like
like
a lot of people don't think about that, but
Yeah.
the number of times like I've exchanged business cards just to remember that I met them, and like they're like, "Oh, I didn't bring them." It's like I'm not gonna remember this conversation. Like,
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
because they're always like a whirlwind.
I never do the, oh, you have a business? Cool, I stream. Here's my card. I don't do that nonsense. But
It's
like,
usually at the end of like a good conversation. You're like, okay,
Right.
it was nice meeting you. Like, oh, by the way, do you have a business card so I can follow you and stuff?
keep up with you, or I do a lot of, hey, let me follow you on Twitter so I can keep up with what's going on, and here's my card. I know some people choose like one way or the other, but I kind of do both and then feel it out from there.
Yeah, I like the business cards because for me, at the end of a convention, I'll like go through them and it helps me remember the conversations. Like, oh, I met this person at my meet and greet. We talked about, you know, them streaming and starting streaming for the first time. Like that helps me. Like, especially if you look at it when you get it and then you look at it again, you know, when you're going through it, it helps.
Yeah.
Visual memory.
Jog that memory.
I also feel like if I can't remember someone once they've given me their business card, that it, like, I'll go back and look and I'll try and actively try. But if I can't remember, then maybe the conversation mentally for me wasn't something that I've noted. So I may just put that in the other pile of, we should come back to that later and check on it later. But these are the people that I remember. Okay, let's contact these people and then move on. Something that Chase taught me to do, who's with Twitch, is to tweet the people after your meetings. Just be like, hey, it was really nice meeting you. Like, you don't have to do like a big tweet or anything. Like, just at them so it doesn't show up in your regular feed, and be like, hey, it was really nice meeting you. Thanks for taking some time out of your day to show me whatever it is that you could show me. And then that kind of helps them remember, oh, we spoke. This is what we did. This is
and in terms of time too, right? Because if you're doing it right after the meeting and they get back to the hotel or whatever and they're scrolling through their feed, they'll see 4 hours ago that it was, and they're just immediately tying that back in temporally, and that would that would bring a lot of
really
easiness.
like that idea.
It's a great idea.
I usually wait till like the end of the con, but like if you can try to do that soon after, like that helps remind them, and then it's like, oh, like this person followed me. I remembered this person. I'm gonna follow them back.
Right.
And you have so many faces and so many names. Like, you don't even have to remember at that point. It's like, it's just, it was right there, and here's the reminder.
Yeah.
It's a real smart idea.
Chase is a smart fellow.
Yeah, I also tend to like forget, like, again, like you meet a lot of people at these conventions, and I feel like I'm still finding people that I forgot to follow from like PAX. So I'm like, oh my god, I totally met you. I didn't get a business card, and I just totally forgot to find you. Like, so I'm still finding those names. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah. And also, Havoc mentioned something about like convention service is pretty bad. If that's the case, do it like each night and just be like, hey, you showed me this game. It was this morning. It was really nice to see you. I hope to do business with you in the future, or let me know if there's anything I can do for you. And then Loco, something like in terms with yours, and I'm totally going to do this because we talked about this a little bit beforehand. Another thing that Chase did that he told me, and a lot of broadcasters, is when you make your business card, put your face on your business card. My old business card had my bright colored hair, but my hair isn't bright colored anymore. So we changed it out with the current headshot that we use for things, so that it's more, hey, this is me in case you forgot kind of thing. So then maybe it'll jog their memory when they're flipping through other cards. They're like, oh, okay. Oh yeah, I remember talking to this person. That's cool. I'm gonna put that with the people I want to reach back out to. Okay, and then like keep going.
Yeah. I think one thing for business cards as well, not for your own, but how to treat the networking. We were talking about the memory and like jogging the memory, and the things that tie in allow it to be memorable for you and the other person. If you have, and you can safely expect to have crappy connection through your phone, because everybody's using it, right? At least one, and a lot of people are trying to broadcast, and it's all clogged up. So a safer option, I think, is ahead of time to prepare to use. And there's some really simple ways to do it, but there's some apps that are specifically oriented around. You take a picture of the business card, and if you want to get a selfie with them or take a picture of their face, don't have to worry about that. But something where you can kind of lock it in. You take a photo of the business card, you make a note. You can make it a note sometimes right on the photo, or just have it paired in together like in Evernote. I think there's some ways to do this. A bunch of apps that let you do that. And then you can set reminders for yourself too when you get back to the hotel and the congestion has died down. Then you can start tweeting out people as the reminders. So you don't have to just hope that you remember the business name and the individual's name when you pull out the card. You can actually like do that work ahead of time for yourself. That can be really useful.
Those are really good. And
how was the oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, have white space of some kind. Like mine's really minuscule. Also, dang, I need to do something with my fingernails. But have white space of some kind, like, which sounds silly, and mine's really minimal, but that gives somebody a place to be like, met at this place, or we talked this place, or some kind of little tiny note. I meant to have more white space on these and I forgot, but it gives the person that has the cards to write stuff down. And if you're talking to someone and you find it really memorable and you want to jot something down, jot it down. Just like, yeah, dude, like, thank you so much. It was really great. I'm going to hold on to this, kind of thing, and make them feel good about taking the card.
Yeah.
Also, like, if you connect on something that's maybe like kind of like random, like, oh, like maybe something on your t-shirt or something, like, and you write down, oh, this, I found out this person also likes basketball or something, and then when you do your follow-up emails, you can kind of mention that, and that'll really help jog their memory. And also it adds like a nice little personal touch. You're clearly not just copy pasting the same email to all these companies,
right? But
you're like actually talking directly to this person because you said something personal about your experience.
Yeah, exactly.
And then I was going to ask, how is the service at the convention floor? Because I feel like every convention center is totally different.
I think mine wasn't too bad.
Some offer Wi-Fi and stuff too, which is nice.
Yeah, I think like the Twitch booth used to have Wi-Fi. Mine wasn't too bad if I remember right. I think there's certain corners of the building that I get better signal, but I'm on Verizon.
Hunting around with your phone doing
like when everybody was freaking out at TwitchCon this year about how they had no signal, I was just walking around like, yo, hello, why is nobody answering my calls? But then I go to some cons and I'm like, yeah, I've got nothing. Which is something else we were kind of talking about. If you have meetings scheduled and for some reason you don't have them in a calendar, or if you have like something you've got to go to, I screen cap everything.
Right.
I screen cap party invites, business stuff, like whatever. So if I'm like, oh my gosh, I know I've got something to do, I'll flip through all my screen caps and be like, there it is, that's what I'm missing, and then I can move on if for some reason my calendar isn't working.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Like, you want to make sure the information you need is accessible offline. And that includes also having like a map of the show floor.
Yes.
I've been to PAX how many times, but the layout's going to be different where the booths are every year. So take a screenshot of that and kind of map out where you want to go ahead of time before you get there, so you're not just like sitting there like slow service, or like you're late because there was a huge line and now you're trying to find out where exactly the booth is on this giant floor plan on your phone. So definitely take some preparation before, know what companies are going and know what you want to go see in that time. And save all the stuff offline. Appointments, booth numbers. I always get the booth number for every like appointment I have. So it's like, okay, it's Ubisoft, but like what booth number? Because sometimes the maps only show it by booth number.
Right.
Yeah.
I also get the ones around it, because sometimes, like, especially when it comes to indies, like they may not have a big thing on the ceiling to be able to see them. I don't know why I couldn't think of the word sign. Like, they may not have that, but like you can look around and be like, okay, well, it's near the Devolver booth, so I'm gonna go over that way, and I know that it's close to whatever, so you can kind of wander your way there. But pathing is so important too. Like, whenever you get your offline map, write on it, like use colored pins if you want to, whatever helps you to mark out your path, because E3 is packed. And last year I did not mark out my path, booked my appointments really tight together, and showed up, and thank goodness this appointment was with a friend, showed up to an appointment 15 minutes late and completely drenched in sweat, from having ran from one hall to the other and like dodging people and like fit my way through. And I got there and I was like, I am
everybody
so sorry, dude.
Oh man.
I'm very professional.
Oh.
So yeah.
All right, so
Man,
you
I
were
had a
mentioning
good question,
conferences, the conferences that happen for the 3 days before the floor happens, and that you managed to get into 1 or 2 of those. How does gaining access to that work? Is that like you were talking about? I think you have to have a special badge now to be able to get into the conferences. And is it like a line? Is it first come first serve? Is it a certain badge priority?
I think it depends on the conference. So with Bethesda, last year I had been talking to the previous CM for Bethesda, and so I was able to get in that way. This year, I know the new CM for Bethesda from where he had been with another company, like we were talking about earlier. So I just reached out and asked. I was like, hey, do you have space for the conference? Because I love Bethesda and I'm so excited about anything new that they're launching. I had such a great time at Bethesda Land last year. I really want to be there. What do you need from me? And they were like, here's an invite. But then sometimes you'll reach out to a company and you'll be like, hey, I'm really interested in what you guys have going on. I would love to come. Is there any way possible I can get in? And they'll be like, sorry, it's for, I'll use Ubisoft for an example. Ubisoft's conference is very limited. It's for star players, their staff, and only select media, being like news outlets and things of that nature. So maybe you don't get in that year, but you build that good relationship. And maybe the next year you can be like, hey, so, I'm really excited. I'm coming back to E3. Is it possible? But now for conferences, 2 months at minimum, you need to reach out. I know that sounds crazy, but they fill up so fast. 2 months at minimum if you want to try to get in. And then sometimes even that's too late because there's some of the conferences, they look really big, but they're really small.
So what's the earliest you would start reaching out then?
2 to 3 months. I'd say 3 months for some, just to find out. Some people will be like, don't talk to me about E3 for another month. Like, it's not a thing. But
it's worthwhile to reach out to have them tell you that?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. You can get put on a list or or, hey, remember we talked about this, and follow up, but don't do it like every day. Don't be like, is it time yet? Is it time yet? Is it time yet? Can I ask you?
Are we there yet?
I feel like, well, I guess April, May. I was going to say after PAX, but like you don't want to do it around PAX because PAX East is, what was it, mid-April?
Yeah.
Early April?
Mm-hmm.
I think.
It was early April.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like a lot of companies are probably doing that first and then doing E3 stuff.
Yeah, and still busy with that. Right.
I usually ask at PAX. Like, I'll start asking.
That's a good idea if you're going
yeah.
Hey, like if I'm having a meeting with the company, for instance, at PAX, I'll just say, hey, are you guys going to E3? I'm going to be there. I'd love to see the progress on X, Y, or Z. Or are you guys doing a conference this year? I'd really like to come. What can I do for you guys? Are you guys looking for influencers or content creators or whatever the case may be, whatever your preferred terminology is? Because I'd love to take part. Or, what can I do? Whatever.
That makes sense.
He gives them the evil eye in person. Sorry. You will invite me. Sorry.
Now, to change gears a little bit, what about the travel situation? Because E3 is in LA, right? And LAX is horrible. And traffic in LA is also horrible. So what recommendations do you have for people that are flying in and then having to travel, like maybe like having to drive to the convention center?
I know that there's other options, but to be honest with you, I just use Uber or Lyft. I know there's other options. I know that there's like a bus thing that runs, but I always just use Uber or Lyft, but I allot a lot of time. Last year, I allotted, I think it was like 2.5 hours because traffic was really bad and I wanted to make sure I was at the airport the 2 hours early. I didn't allot 2 hours before the 2 hours, but I had allotted like 2.5 hours so that it'd be like 30, 45 minutes of travel, and it was cutting it too close. So like I would allot a lot more time than that. So if you're going to go, add whatever time you think, check Google Maps, check, the local traffic situation. before you even try to get an Uber or a Lyft or whatever you're using, because traffic in LA is stupid. It is stupid.
Yeah, I mean, I know like flying out, especially like leave early, like leave at the crack of dawn. Like,
Yes.
Is
way
it
before your
worthwhile to
flight.
consider other airports like Long Beach? Because it's like going to be further out from the convention, but it might be,
It
less
honestly might be
packed.
better if you can get a flight to there. I don't think it's that far.
Yeah, I mean, John Wayne isn't too bad either, but
So
it's,
there are some alternatives if you wanted to.
yeah, absolutely. But like, again, there are other options outside of just Uber or Lyft. I get lost really easily, and I did not grow up with public transportation. I've never had to, take the subway or ride the bus and get off at this stop and then grab it here. So for me, it's very confusing, and I already am a nervous wreck on my way there. So the last thing I need to do is to take the wrong subway and end up in Nebraska
Yeah,
or something.
totally.
I would rather
That would
just
happen.
take a Lyft or an Uber and hope that I don't die in that process.
Now, what about like hotel to convention floor? Like, is it better to walk if you're reasonably close, or like how
Yeah.
bad is the traffic?
I mean, it's not. It's pretty bad. It's pretty bad, but like if you can walk it, walk it. As long as you're in a safe area. Now the convention center is pretty close, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong. It's pretty close to Skid Row, so like be careful. Especially at night, just be really aware of your surroundings. Don't wander off into the somewhere that you think you're
Don't
comfortable
go
with.
by yourself.
Don't
Yeah.
go
Don't
anywhere
travel
by
alone.
yourself ever, like whatsoever. But that's why for me, like at night, we always took a car. And then during the day, sometimes we would walk, depending on how close we were.
So we will sort of take some questions from chat. If you guys have any questions about anything regarding E3 or like, conventions in general. Kintinue, what would you say, like, going to E3, like, just list out your biggest tips for someone going to E3 maybe for the first time or a convention for the first time?
Big key points. Yeah, what would they be?
Bring a phone charger, like a charging block with a cable.
Battery? Yeah.
Yeah, bring an extra battery as well. Wear shoes that are comfortable, not cute.
And shoes that you've already broken in. Don't buy a fresh pair of kicks and go like, oh, it'll be fine. I'm just going to walk around all day in these untested.
I wore Tom's all of PAX East, and I thought I was going to die. And make sure you drink plenty of water and take time to eat. Whether it's a protein bar, or a real meal, eat food and drink a ton of water, because you're doing a lot more walking than you normally would. Yeah.
It's pretty good. Hunter, you got any?
Definitely a big fan of the water, because one of the things that I keep water and food, but it depends on the person. Some people aren't so sensitive to being low on water and they still operate kind of fine. It's about knowing yourself. Some people like myself can go without food and be perfectly fine, but I always make sure that I have snacks and water. And I guess that would be a matter of awareness for which badge type you have because of what you can and can't bring in this year. So that would play a role. That would play a difference.
Yeah.
So if you know that you're going to need food regularly, you should probably allot that time to go and buy some. I assume that there would be vendors on the floor and stuff, right?
Yeah, this year they changed it to where you can't bring in any outside food or drink at all.
Yeah, so I very safely assume there'll be $300-$400 hamburgers and stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm gonna bring an empty water bottle,
which in turn means budget for that.
Yes.
Because you'll have to budget for that too, and cash is a big one. Make sure that you have cash, because you never know when a vendor's machine is going to break and be down, and you really want that thing or need that water. Make sure that you have some cash on you.
Not only that, but have two different. So this is going to sound stupid, but I've had friends where this has happened. Have two different credit cards, and cash, which sounds
absolutely.
But you never know if you're.
No, that sounds perfectly normal.
Bad, yeah. So I always have at least two plus cash, and then usually I try to take my passport and my ID just in case something happens.
Yeah, I mean, especially traveling, like you never know especially if you haven't traveled much on your own, your bank may lock down your credit card, and then you're like,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well,
and then
and
it's the
sometimes
weekend, and then you can't do anything about it. Like some
sometimes you're
days,
buying
like
food and somebody will just get your credit card number and
Mhm.
and use it right there. Like that can happen at any time at home or when you're traveling. That card gets locked down, you still need to be able to make sure that you can pay for anything.
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then I would say, like, for tips, we have this article on StreamerSquare that I wrote, that applies like a general convention tips article. If you guys want more in-depth tips about conventions, we do have a couple questions that we'll get to. So the first one is, what is the advantage of having a media badge compared to a public badge?
More access, quicker. In some regards, you can get into things quicker. I think there's different line this year, but I'm not sure. And you can have a bag this year for sure. There's other things as well. Last year, it was kind of weird. They put the non-media badges in this fluorescent yellow plastic so that they stood out like sore thumbs, and it almost was like, I don't know. I felt bad. Like, I don't know. It was weird. I felt like people got treated differently last year in a way. And I don't know.
Like it was dirty,
Yeah.
like you could see, like it was like,
Like,
oh, you're a naughty pleb.
yeah. And
Really?
that's how some people
That's
reacted to them. And it
that's
was
interesting.
really gross. Like, I
Yeah.
was sitting in line with some people and somebody said it. And I was like, maybe don't do that. Like, that's not a good idea. But it does give you it gives you more access if you have a media badge. And typically, if you have, I think like at one point we were in line for something and they were kind of like trying to piece people in to get them through a particular thing. And they were like, okay, well, who's media? And we raised our hands and they're like, do you have any appointments after this? And we could name off if we did or did not so that they could kind of bump us. And then they would ask the next group, like, okay, who do you guys have appointments? No? Okay, good. Well, then you're coming in after them, kind of thing. So it kind of bumps you a little bit if you don't have an appointment.
Do they open up at
Right.
different times? Is it like 8 a.m. for
I don't
media
know.
industry,
They
10
did
10
last
a.m. for
year.
no,
I think
okay.
they did the first day, but they didn't, like, you know how in PAX they do that where it's like
Yeah.
the first day you can get on. I
The
think
media
they
hour.
did the first day, but I don't know if they did, if they're going to this year. I'm not sure.
Next question is, what are the top 3 conventions to go to for content creators?
Mm.
If you're a Twitch streamer, TwitchCon.
Yeah.
I've only really been to TwitchCon and PAX, I think.
Which
Never been
PAXs
E3.
though? Because like PAX South, a lot of debate
Right.
on that one.
Not
generally
that useful. in
not
my
yeah,
opinion.
generally not considered
Unless
as
you live
productive.
nearby.
Yeah.
Yeah, or if you have some disposable income and it's not that big of a deal for you to take 4 days off from streaming, you want to hang out with your friends, it's a great place to go hang out with your friends because you're not going to have
Right.
it's not going to be jam packed. You just get to chill. It's a lot more chill. PAX
I like-
West and PAX East can be pretty big
Right.
ones. Obviously, Twitch.
They're pretty much, in my opinion, the same. Like, if you go to PAX East, like, I don't think, like, you need to hit PAX West. Or if you're going to PAX West, like, they're on opposite sides of the country. So for me, I'm on the East Coast, so I love PAX East.
Yeah.
Great and convenient. But then, TwitchCon is kind of near PAX West, so I'll probably skip that. But, so for me, TwitchCon, because I'm a Twitch partner, and then, like, PAX East or PAX West. Now, now that you've been to E3, where do you rank that for, usefulness for content creators compared to PAX events?
If you can get a media badge, E3 is huge. If you can take the time to book appointments and spend time kind of cultivating those relationships with developers and PR people, E3 is huge. I love TwitchCon. E3 is a lot of fun. And I prefer PAX West, even though I'm on the East Coast, just because I don't like the cold. It's so cold in Boston.
Yeah.
It's so cold.
Have you guys been to Gamescom?
No, not yet.
No.
Yeah, I really want to go.
It's also worth noting that I know nothing about European and like non-North American conventions. I know that there's some big ones out there. I have never attended any of those, and I've got like no perspective on those. But there might be some strong value there. It's outside my knowledge.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of want to see what it's like.
Yeah.
See how it compares.
I want to do an EU one really bad this year.
Yeah, me too. Havoc actually makes a good point. It says, like, it's generally easier to network with vendors at TwitchCon as they understand what content creation is. So, yeah, it's nice.
Automatically, yeah.
It's getting us so much better, though, nowadays. Like, I mean, even when I started streaming, a few years ago, it was still kind of like, oh, you're a streamer, okay, why do I care? Now it's like, I feel like a lot of companies really understand, oh, you're a streamer, come on in.
Yeah.
That's interesting in the context of E3 itself, because I was reading up on E3's history. The first, like before the first year of E3 in 95, 93, something like that, video game publishers, developers were relegated to like a tent outside, like past like porn vendors and stuff. And it was like you had this really weird, like you are absolutely at the total back of any convention. And they were really upset. And they needed to like develop out their own space. And then this was where like E3 was kind of born. And it's obviously grown tremendously since then. We're kind of seeing the same thing with content creators. Like now any convention that we have a lot of cosplayers that are going out to cons that don't directly deal with video games themselves, and they're also expanding Twitch out in that kind of direction. Well, not Twitch, but content creation, streaming, vlogging, producing content for YouTube. It's getting a lot easier for us to be understood, for our space to be acknowledged at any convention in a lot of spaces.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, I would say E3, PAX, TwitchCon if you're a Twitch streamer. I have a kind of like a random question. Do you think we're gonna see a MixerCon?
I was thinking about that earlier today because I was reading Mob Lord's article.
Yeah,
I was thinking about that.
I mean,
I think
give it a year, maybe 2, and there will be one.
I don't think we're right on the cusp. I don't think we're going to see something like that announced this year, but I think we would start to see some teasers for that. I safely assume that it's in the works.
Yeah, I would definitely see that.
Are they going to compete in the West Coast? Or what, like,
maybe I mean, with Microsoft's foundation, they do have those options, and a lot of people do say, oh, Twitch, why do you always put it over here on the West? You know, people live elsewhere. And if Mixer goes like, we got that, we got you, we're going to have one here in the, it's like really floating around East Coast, in the South, Midwest.
That would be cool.
It's interesting.
So, yeah, we're definitely going to have a stream scene episode in the future to talk about, Mixer, people moving to Mixer and stuff. That's good stuff to talk about, but I want to give people time to switch first and see what it's like, and then bring them back and be like, okay, so how's Facebook doing? Like, how's Mixer doing?
Well, we got to have our speculation. We got to have our speculation first, and then actually see like what it's like for all of these people experiencing that switch, and as a whole, like how has the platform developed? How, speaking in future think, how has the platform developed since all of these people have moved over? Did it bring a lot of people with them? Is it expanding the exposure for the platform itself? And then that to how it treats content creators.
A lot of people have been moving, and a lot of high profile names too. So it's definitely already providing a lot of exposure, and like that's the play, right? That's like the play to grow Mixer, is like to bring established creators in their communities, because they're not just going to lure people on their own. They got to bring the people that have the people.
Yeah.
Yep. And they have the money to do that too, which is really nice.
Yeah.
It's nice to see that competitive atmosphere.
Yeah, it's a very, very interesting time right now for content creation and Twitch. So really curious to see how that goes moving forward.
Yeah.
Next question is, if you're going to E3, how far in advance should you look for a hotel? I'm so bad at this stuff.
I'm really bad at this. I think the first year I found out I was going to E3 like a month beforehand.
Oh boy. That's a limited opportunity for planning.
Yeah, and then last year I stayed with somebody who I always stay with Meg, and Meg had like a hotel already from something else. And then this year we had started looking maybe a month or two in advance. I don't know. And then we changed the hotel again. I'm really bad at it. We didn't have a room booked for PAX East until 3 weeks before the con. I am the worst. Now TwitchCon we booked really far in advance, but
one of the great things about hotels, unless I'm mistaken, I assume that some may work differently, but generally my understanding is that you book a reservation and it's not, you don't have like a down payment or anything.
Right.
You can cancel at will. At any time within, sometimes it's like a week, but at least 24 hours in advance of when your stay would be. So I would always recommend book a hotel immediately. You're not paying any money up front for the most part. You're not going to be paying any money up front. It's just booking and you see the pricing and you have it listed and it's locked in right there. You don't have to necessarily, well, usually you don't have to worry about it after that's done until your hotel gets canceled out of nowhere, which does happen to a fair number of us here and there. But booking it in advance is a great idea, as far in advance as you can. When something is announced, you're getting your tickets, or you don't even have your tickets yet. Again, it costs you nothing to lock that hotel in.
There's no downside in booking early. So like the sooner you know that you're gonna go, or like you know the dates, you know the location, like go for it. There's no early time, too early. But the later you wait, the harder it is going to find a hotel. Like if you're trying to book it a month or sooner in advance, you're going to pay a premium to get anywhere near the convention center if there's any rooms at all. Especially for a place like LA. Like it's crazy busy. What is the most common thing that devs look for in content creators?
Some look for, oh gosh. Are you talking about at E3 itself or at cons in general, or just
could do both
in general?
It scales a lot.
Yeah.
That can scale a lot. It depends on the game and the company that's doing it. If you're working with like a massive publisher, it's going to be an entirely different scale than you're working with an indie dev that's self-publishing and what they're looking for. I mean, how metrics play a role in it, or if it's just any interest and they just want to give out a code. Whether or not there's going to be sponsored play, stuff like that, there could be a very large scale there.
I would say, like confidence and preparedness can get you really far, no matter your size.
Meeting in person, if you're going to be at E3 and shaking hands, yeah, that's big. That's big. They don't want to. They're going to be really hesitant working with even a big content creator who's rude, crass, or just like way too familiar right out of the gate sometimes. Yeah. And it's something like E3, you were talking about how formal it can be too. So it's like, know what you want so that you can present those ideals and desires right there and have yourself presentable.
Exactly. Like, know what you want and know that you're worth their time. Like,
exactly.
Don't say, I'm a small streamer. Don't say it. Like,
no, don't do it.
Degrade yourself. Like, don't be like, oh, I'm just a small streamer. Like, I may not be able to do much. Be like, hey, like, I'm very excited about your game. I know that my community is going to love it because I played this game and this game. It's very similar, and I've been following you guys for a while. I would love to work with you guys to do a launch event. I'd like to give away, like, maybe a couple copies. Plan in advance, maybe like do some cool like emotes or something themed around your game.
Yes.
This is my plan, and this is what I want to do with you guys.
Yeah, like what can I do for you?
Yeah, right. Give them the value. Yeah. Like as soon as you go in and you're like, I'm a small streamer, you're immediately taking value away that could potentially be there. Like you have value, you can pitch that to somebody and let them find that value too. There's absolutely no point in denigrating yourself. There's obviously nothing wrong with being a small broadcaster, but there's no reason to pitch that. You're obviously talking about that as a downside for the most part. There are some actual real strong values to being a small content creator when you're talking to a dev or a publisher. But if you're saying like, hey, I just want to let you know I might not be worth your time, don't do that. Don't make that presentation, regardless of what you're going to say. If that's the kind of thing you're putting out there, just skip it.
Right. Yeah. Let's see. What tips does the panel have for things like booking hotels and flights? But yeah, so we already answered about the hotels. Flights, the earlier the cheaper it's gonna be. But I mean, you, like most flights, you can kind of like last minute. If it's a last minute thing, it's kind of usually not that hard to get like a last minute flight, but it's gonna be a lot more expensive the longer you wait.
It's dangerous to go to do standby stuff, but you know, if you want to risk it.
I've never been on standby.
I don't want to ever.
I'm too scared for that. I'd rather pay, you know, $1 trillion to get my wing.
So is it like just like significantly cheaper, but you're just like hoping someone doesn't make it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's really safe to assume that people are not going to be making their flight. That people are going to have canceled and rebooked, or simply aren't going to be showing up on time because of traffic, because they slept in, because they're an idiot like me, doing whatever they do to miss the flight. I missed my very first flight in my entire life recently. I was so upset with myself. Yeah. But
I would be upset too.
It opened up a seat for somebody on standby, and this happens all the time. But if there are 10 people on standby and 6 people don't show up, you're the person who then waits for the next flight, and you're waiting in the airport that whole time. It's not guaranteed. So it can be significantly cheaper, but it can also be hazardous because it's an unknown.
Yeah. Any other questions from the chat about E3, about conventions, anything before we close? And I do want to say that Hunter and I are going to be co-streaming E3 on this channel for the conferences.
Right here.
We're going to have some guest streamers as well for each of the conferences.
Yeah.
So you're going to see a lot of cool faces here joining us during E3 weekend, this coming weekend. We'll have the full schedule out to you guys this week, and it should be really exciting.
Really excited to share the reveals and have those conversations live while it's happening. It's gonna be so
really
cool.
predictions.
I know.
And talk like post game, and we'll also like tie it into streaming. Like, okay, this game, like, how is this gonna do during launch? What's the timing of this? We'll talk about, you know, everything about what we hear, and it's gonna be exciting.
As it relates to streaming, like that's where my expertise is. It's challenging to make the connections between a lot of these things. And that's what I think is really fantastic about doing the broadcasting of the events themselves, is we get to do that with the audience and with each other, sharing that perspective as it's happening, as those reveals are happening. It makes it a lot better to see those connections.
Yeah.
I remember the first year that we went, we did something like we hosted it, but like you couldn't do the co-hosting or whatever.
Yeah.
So like we just hosted that in my chat room and talked about it.
Yeah.
Like that was fun too. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I'm kind of jealous. I want to do that.
It looks like we have one more question. Is there any value in arriving the day before and working out for an extra day? Hold on, my chat to scroll down. For an extra night in the hotel. I mean, you should arrive the day before.
Yeah.
The convention. You don't want to fly in the day of and then like. I like to get there early, the day before, get settled in. You know, like that's usually
the downside to all of
day
it.
Zero parties.
Yeah. There's an immense amount of stress for me if I'm flying in day of. Got to get there early, presumably, and then you're immediately on your feet, and it's just go time, and then you're getting very little sleep while you're having all the stress, and you got to make sure that you're flying out on time. And if that's all like really compacted to just that weekend, oh man, that's a killer. But as a content creator, it gives you more opportunity to stream before, stream after, and it's just like you took a slightly longer weekend. And that can be really nice. Right. So that this is why it's always a trade-off. I will go for 6 days to a convention to make sure I've got time ahead of time that I can hang out with the people who are important to me, because Twitch is family. And same thing on the far side is I need to be able to have my wind down and relaxation time before returning, so that I can come back fresh and not kill my immune system with the lack of sleep and the stress and all that stuff, being surrounded by people who may not be washing their hands, things like that. All of this balanced in together, but you're spending more time away from the stream. You're losing momentum. You're losing revenue, all of that stuff at the same time. So balance out what, works for you. If you're not overstressed by going in for a 3-day thing, you come in the morning, you leave the night, go for it. Sure. my recommendation is always to give yourself a little bit of breathing room, though, because you never know when you're going to show up and it turns out that your hotel has been booked. You need to do the work to find another one. Maybe you need to crash with a friend for the night. You don't want to be doing that while you also have to be on point all day long doing meetings and on the floor. And it's just, that's like way too much.
Yeah, I mean, I always book a day early because the first year that I did cons, every single flight had a problem. So, like, every single flight had a problem for the first year. So I always booked a day early. I always book earlier morning flights. Plus, day zero things are things. Like, there's a lot that goes on day zero. So if you're coming in for E3, you definitely want to come in. If you're not going to any of the conferences, but you're going to the show floor, you definitely want to be there on day zero because there's a lot going on. Like, there's people are out grabbing dinner, there's parties, there's chances to meet with friends or colleagues or whoever.
And people are fresh, right? And not worn down.
Yeah, and you're not showing up the day of, throwing your stuff into a hotel, running to the con and being like, hello, I'm sorry, I'm 3 hours late, my plane was delayed, whatever. Like, you're set. And that first year and all those flying problems, I always end up a day early now because I'm like,
it only takes one time that you have that experience.
By the time we were done, like, I got stuck in Denver for like 4 hours one time. The first E3, it was my first E3. I got stuck there with Tiger Rider for 4 hours, and I was like, "This is terrible. Is this what flying is like? I never want to do it again." Yeah.
All right, so that's gonna wrap it up for today, guys. We are gonna do some shout outs. Continue. Thank you so much for joining us. That is you. Tell us where we can find you.
You can find me on Twitch at Kintinue, Kintinue. Twitter is Kintinue. Instagram's official Kintinue. Yeah, and I stream every day except for Saturday, and I stream really early morning on the East Coast.
Do you have any special events coming up? Anything you're doing?
We just had a big, I literally filled this room from floor to almost ceiling yesterday with balloons. There were over 300 balloons in here. We celebrated 2 years of partnership. It was great.
Hey, congratulations.
Awesome. Thanks. And then we did some charity stuff last month and the month before. So we have some games that we're looking forward to. I'm really looking forward to Jurassic World, which is releasing while we're at E3.
I know.
That's literally why I'm not going. So
I know.
Like, I need to play this game.
We look out on that one.
Back. Like, I will be all about it.
Yeah.
Hunter, what about you?
Where can you find me? Twitch.tv/TheHunterWild, on Twitter @TheHunterWildTV, and on Instagram TheHunterWild. Pretty consistent across there. I still want to get that TV off. I exist on the internet, not on the TV.
I know.
I am going to be, I think I just found out today that I think I'm going to be starting my Vampire launch event after the stream here.
Yay!
I think I'm pretty sure that's starting today. I'm going to go check on that, but I'm really excited for that because that's going to be 12 hours a day, giving away a ton of copies. And I'm really excited about the game too. Like, it's got a really interesting time setting for the premise, and the dynamic of the game looks really fun. And of course, Jurassic World Evolution, going to be starting that one on the 12th. Real excited for that. I love simulators, especially ones where dinosaurs can eat your park.
Right. I mean, Zoo Tycoon was my jam as a kid, so I'm pumped.
Sim City, Planet Coaster recently. Oh, so great.
Oh, did you see all the DLC for Planet Coaster?
Yes, I was like,
I don't think I did.
Oh, there's so much. You have to.
I can't wait to dive back into that one. It offers a lot. But in the meantime, dinosaurs eating my park people.
Yes.
Especially if you could name the people after viewers.
Oh, yeah.
And then you accidentally delete the fence, and the T-Rex is eating all your viewers.
Sorry, Greens, you've gotten eaten.
You know, it'd be such a cool idea if they had Twitch integration that just automatically populated the names of your people.
That would be easy and brilliant.
Yes.
That would be great. Because there's definitely big games that have done that kind of stuff. That would be...
We had Roller Coaster Tycoon one time when I was a kid, and I'll tell this really fast. And I had this one kid that I had named one of the people after, and like my dad went to play it, and he's like, "Who the heck is this dude who's lost in the park?" And like it was anyway. Sorry. met him in person, and he was like, "Are you the kid that's been lost in the park for like the last?" Okay, anyway.
I guess last but not least, guys, you can find me on twitter.com/loco255, twitch.tv/loco. Currently doing my first ever Detroit Become Human playthrough. We started that today for a few hours.
It was fun to watch today.
Tomorrow. Yeah, it's an amazing game, and I can see why people love to watch it.
A lot of permutations.
God, I love that game so much.
Someone in chat was like, I've seen like 13 playthroughs, and I've already seen new things from your playthrough. Mm-hmm. And I was only like a few chapters in, so
I had a bunch of 1% options, which means it was all in all likelihood less than 1%, which was
that's crazy.
Yeah, I was making some bizarre choices. It's a really fun game.
Yeah, so I'm excited to continue that. Then I'm going to be checking out Vampire later this week. So I hope, by the end of the week, it's getting some good reviews so I can dive into it. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's it for me. If you guys want to follow our StreamerSquare Twitter, definitely make sure to check us out. We also have a Discord where you guys can talk about streaming, can talk about the show, anything we covered. If you guys need help or need some artists for rebranding, we have everything you need in the StreamerSquare Discord. So come join us. And I'll be here tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern for the Stream Doctor.
Such a good show.
So if you guys want to submit your channel for review, I will be here tomorrow for that. 4
Definitely
p.m. Eastern.
Go in there for that. What time?
4 p.m. Eastern time. So an hour before this show normally starts tomorrow.
It is brilliant. It is worthwhile. Even if you aren't submitting your show for her critique and review, get in there and watch. You will learn so much. And you can have your own custom perspective on your stream, on your show by an expert, a professional, a top in her class.
Expert, I mean, experience, I'll say.
A thoroughly experienced streamer.
I'm going to submit my stream to your...
Absolutely.
I might do it.
God, the pressure. The pressure.
Tear it apart.
I've had a couple of partners submit it. Usually they're doing a lot of things good because it makes sense, right? Because they're doing well. But I mean, if you want to, I won't hold back. So I'll be up front. But yeah, so that's gonna be tomorrow, 4 p.m. But that's gonna do it for us this week. Next week we probably won't have an episode of the stream scene because again we're covering E3, so we will be live on the channel. I believe E3 starts this Saturday. This weekend we'll be here. Covering all the
Saturday, I think.
Conferences Saturday. Yeah, so we'll be here Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday covering all the conferences with a select number of different streamers, and it'll be a good time. So definitely make sure to come for that. We'll put the schedule on Twitter and Discord this week as soon as we finalize it. So thank you guys for watching. Really appreciate it. Continue. Thank you again.
Thanks for having me.
It's been wonderful.
Yes. Our only E3 senpai here. Me and Hunter were like, okay.
Yeah, give it to us.
You got this. Tell us everything. Teach us. So we'll see you guys soon. Have a wonderful rest of your evening, guys.
Bye, everybody.
Peace.